welcome to this review of Madame Koi Koi, a newly released horror thriller. Oh, scary. On Netflix, where it's currently streaming. This movie was written and directed by Jay Franklin Jituboh, and the anticipation has been high for Madame Koi Koi. Madame Koi Koi is, do I say a beloved? Well, not beloved, but familiar fable from our childhood, especially those of us who went to boarding school. So I was very excited when I saw that they were making a movie on the subject, and the anticipation has been high. So let's get straight to it, starting with the summary. It says on Netflix, when new student Amanda arrives at boarding school, she begins having nightmares linked to a supernatural entity with a bloody agenda. Okay, I would say it started before she even got to the school, but whatever. Now, this story is told in chapters, and so this first chapter, titled The Awakening, is the one that has been released, and I think the next one is going to be released in a week or so. Let's go straight into it. What worked? What did I like? Number one, the performances. I think across the board they were pretty good, but standout is Ireti Doyle. Now she's a thespian, she's a performer, she's an actor par excellence, she's something else. But this particular role, her character as Mother Superior, it felt like she took her spirit and put into this role. Her performance was just so incredible. Notable mentions are Martha Ehinome, who plays Amanda. And this, when I heard the name Amanda, I was like, is this a nod to Amanda Young, a character in Saw? You guys know this character who went from being a victim to an apprentice, and then later like massive antagonist. So are we to expect something like that? But let me just say that this movie has not given us any reason to expect something like that. Now, the other actors, like Ejiro Najafe, who plays Ibukun, the actors who play the characters of ID, Kayode, Tokumbo, and Lashe, they were competent enough. I enjoyed their performances. I think they did okay. And then there were just a lot of other people. Everyone pretty much pulled their weight, but I'm just going to say that it was Ireti who blew me away and just took it all away. Now, this movie did a really good job of right away establishing the world that this story was operating in and the premise. There were some sub-themes that were explored very lightly but were noted all the same. One of them was, I believe, that a commentary was being made here about the school acting as an autonomous system, a theocracy almost within a larger constitutional system. The Mother Superior's misogynistic take on rape was another commentary being made on usually how the victims of have the blame for it placed on them. What were you wearing? Where were you? What were you doing there? And so on. And then it goes beyond just the crime itself to even the aftercare, which, like as we saw in this case, there was no post care. You know, that poor girl, she didn't get any care, she didn't get any tests done, she didn't get any help, she didn't get just nothing, right? And that's also, I guess, a commentary on how victims of or survivors of get treated in the wider society. And when I see things like this in film, sometimes I'm like, it's just a depiction of how things change, but things stay the same, you know. And you could think this movie was set in 1991. How is that different today? That's a good topic of discussion. I think that this film did a really good job in very early establishing the conflict for Mother Superior, how there were all these forces ranged against her, trying to take her school or shut down her school or whatever, and how she would do anything to maintain the existence and the status of this school. And that was clearly reflected in all the decisions she made, in her judgment of the and also her willful blindness to everything that followed the investigation and all that. I think there was a good portrayal of young romance, secondary school romance, boarding house romance, for as long as it was romantic before it went to shit. I felt that the secondary school boarding house aesthetic was well captured. I said aesthetic because there's a but there, but as far as just that aesthetic of the boarding house world, I thought that was very well captured, and that leads me into production design and art design. I thought they were all good. The sets, the makeup, the costume, the music, the lighting, and the score. I thought that they did a really good job with all of those. So just the elements of like production, I thought that they did really, really well. So well done to this crew, okay? They did great, the cast and the crew. Now, I'm going to go straight into, I'm going to say a final thing, which was exposition. That's kind of like this for me. On one hand, I could see where it was heavy on exposition, but on the other hand, I could also see like a real effort being made to mask the fact that this was just information being passed. So even if it wasn't done to where you didn't notice that it was exposition, but just the awareness that you could see that there was a deliberate effort to make it seem more natural, and I appreciated that. Let me just say that. Now, for things that did not work, sometimes it just felt like it was difficult to place people in a scene. There seemed to be like a lack of spatial awareness, especially with character voices kind of matching when you know that as far as where they are placed in the scene, the loudness should not be matching in the same way. So that kind of threw me in, especially that assembly hall scene in the very beginning of the movie. Now, I've heard talk about the scenes, and I try to keep away from social media or any discussion about a film before I review the film, so I don't know exactly how people feel about the rape scene, but I'm going to say that for me it was unnecessarily graphic. I don't know, this is probably personal, so I'm not going to even place it strictly in what did not work. I'm just going to say that for my taste, it was just both instances were like super graphic. And if you're going to do a meta-analysis on like the thinking of probably the director, it's probably where we're like, we talk about rape all the time, and it's like people forget how terrible and terrifying it is. So let's remind people on how terrible and horrific and all of that. And I can see that, so, but as a viewer, it was just totally unsettling, and which could be the point. Do you see what I'm doing here? Like, even I am struggling with saying it was unnecessarily graphic, but also I see why, as far as social commentary, it probably had to be as graphic as it was to make the point, because that is the point. Now, I have a small caveat, and this one's again personal. I usually am wary when rape is the go-to thing for female trauma. There's so many things that can happen to women, but it seems as though whenever we want to give a woman trauma, want to give a woman a painful backstory, it's usually rape, and I don't know, but I hope that that's not all that this was, like a plot device in this movie. I don't know what's going to happen in the second part, but it starts with a it could be a commentary on things change but they stay the same. Like 20 years ago a rape happened here, now 20 years later it kicks off again with a rape, and that's, I have a question about this towards the end, but for now I'm just going to say that as a go-to, as a just plot device whenever we want trauma for a woman, it bothers me. Some of the scenes felt endless. That's a full sentence. As far as the makeup and the costume, I've said that, production design, art design, they were great. However, there were some inconsistencies. For instance, when the girl, the survivor, victim, whichever you prefer, whenever she came back to the boarding house, I didn't think that the way she appeared was compatible with what she had just been through. I'm just going to leave that there. Then, what's her name? Madam Koi Koi person, Omiwumi Dada's character. Her appearance, I know they tried, but this was again 20 years prior to the 1999-91 when this movie, so that's 1971. I'm not sure she looked 1971 enough, not to talk of the lighting in that scene, but also her makeup. She had highlighter on her face. I'm like, but the guys also, the men who her in that scene, they seemed even more modern than Deyemi Okala was Officer Theophilus. I wasn't always clear about the point of view of Madame Koi Koi's victims, right? For instance, on two separate occasions actually, when she attacked ID and also the other guy, the drunk, in both instances, we could see the world as it was, right? We could see her approach, we could see all the drama of that, the shade, the growling, the noises, all of that, and the horror of her image. But the characters did not seem to see what we as the audience were being made to see. ID was pretty much still saying, even when she was like in his face, she was still saying Ibukun, Ibukun. He was still, calling out Ibukun, Ibukun. I was like, are you not seeing what we are seeing? And it was the same. The guy, the drunk man, was pretty much like extolling her beauty, and it confused me. So it made me wonder, like, did she take a different form that only the people that she was about to like attack could see. I don't know. As far as the story, it looked to me that some plotting and structuring were deliberately mishandled for story convenience. An example is Mother Superior basically just not looking for ID or asking for ID at all. It's one thing to say that her school is being threatened. It's another thing for her to have gone looking for the other 3 boys, but the actual boy that Ibukun mentioned by name and said, I went to town with him, she didn't go looking for him. Why? I had a general feeling that, again, the plot was deliberately kept surface level in order to extend the story. So even the investigation, news got to school before the police got to the school. And even when the police got to the school, they didn't even insist on the boy like being identified. They just took it at face value. I know you're going to say this was 1991, but policing is policing and common sense is common sense. It's been common sense 20 years ago or however long ago that was. That's like 30 years ago. We're old though. So, I think that was just deliberate, maybe to stretch the story. I don't know. But I don't know I guess when I see the next part, I'll know. But so far, there was not enough, by the way, in this first chapter I don't feel that this movie needed to be 2 chapters. I think that I don't know what's going to happen in the next one, but I think that it could have been 1 movie with tighter plotting. I'm going to say in summary that this movie did not scare me, and that's probably because I was primed from the opening to be scared. The reason horror movies scare us, I would say, is because it begins with the establishment of normalcy. If we come into this world that is very normal, even if we know that the genre is horror, but everything seems so normal that you can't even see where the danger is going to come from. But the way this was structured, we started to see these flashes before it just made you sort of primed in a way that when it started to happen, it was like, was that it? I don't know what the stakes were really in this movie. I didn't feel a sense of anxiety for any particular person. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel a sense of anxiety for this school or for any specific characters or for this community as a whole. I don't know. And so again, there's not enough, in my opinion, in this first chapter to justify the splitting of this movie into 2 parts, but we'll see. Now, as far as societal narratives, this movie seemed to be split down the middle, where men are abusers and women are victims. As far as what the story we've been told, like 90% of men are invariably the abusers, and it's all there. I don't need to lay it out. And I'm like, is that us holding up a mirror to society? And if so, is that the narrative that we're perpetuating? We know the statistics, but what exactly are we saying with those numbers? Don't ask me. Even the one instance where the victim was a boy and was male and not female, the little boy who was hiding from a senior, even there, his abuser was still male. So here are some questions that I'd like to see resolved in the next chapter. Ibukun, was she the first girl that was raped? What do we know about this world before we come into this story? We know something that happened 20 years ago. It's not clear to me what that in-between time has been until when Amanda enters this world. Speaking of Amanda, she was haunted even before she came into this school. That whole thing started on the drive when she fell asleep and had a dream. So are we going to find out why? Why her? Are we going to find out what is about her that gives her access to this world? I guess we'll see, right? Okay. And then with Ibukun, I don't see trauma, There's no one way to write a survivor, right? But the way that she was post was jarring for me. I saw a lot of anger. I saw, but I didn't see, she just kind of went back to business as usual, but just really furious. So I don't know if that was handled appropriately. I don't feel so, because it was just jarring to me to see her with all that anger. Two other small things as far as the titles, both of the film itself and then the chapter. For the film itself, Origin, I don't know if this qualifies exactly as an origin story per se, because the origin was only told. We know what origin stories look like, but this origin only happened in the final, not even final arc, but final scene of the movie. So I don't know if it qualifies, if that title is justified. And then The Awakening, again, I don't know if that's justified, because it looks like this thing was already active before we even came into this world. That's why, again, I'm struggling with whatever came before Ibukun came into the school, because what is the awakening? So these are all questions that I'm hoping that the second part will answer. For now, let me preemptively state that I don't know if I'm going to enjoy the resolution of this movie. And that's because I've seen the trailer and it feels like it's going to be that story of that we love so much, of resolving something like that through religious means. And of course, our spirituality will always take second place to Western religion, and because we've seen The Silent Sister and all of that, and we've seen the trailer. So I'm not looking forward to that. I already know I'm going to hate it, but we'll be here with our lights, mic, camera, and so on to talk about it. So I enjoyed this movie. Like I said, it didn't scare me. Now, there's a final thing that I should have said before among things that did not work for me, because it really mellowed my enjoyment of this movie. And that is the fact that this movie took us to a very unique world of the boarding house, but then it was so focused on the story it wanted to tell that it forgot to let us bask in this world that it had taken us to. Those of us who went to secondary school, to boarding house specifically, it's a very, very different world. It's like a whole other world. There was so much that we could have seen, that could have been done. And I'm not talking about creating new scenes. I'm talking about using the scenes that we had to full effect, right? We just had people walking, all those times that we had people strolling and walking and doing this. We know all the facets of boarding house. I didn't see any prep. I didn't see any ref. I didn't see any morning duty. I didn't see games. I didn't see, we did see assembly, but that's normal for any secondary school. I didn't see the day student, boarding house, student interaction. That's a whole other thing. We saw the little bit about like seniors bullying junior students and boys, so much more than that. School mother, school father, boarding, please, that's such a rich world that I feel like was kind of squandered here. Maybe I'll be proven wrong and we'll see more of that in the next part, but honestly, I wanted to immerse myself in that world and there was no immersion. This could have, I guess it had to be secondary school because of some of the things that, it had to be a boarding house rather, because of some of the things that happened in the story. They couldn't happen with a day school. But as far as the activities and immersing us in that world, it could have been a day school, really. So that's that for this review. Guys, if you've enjoyed this review, first of all, thank you. If you're here until the end, thank you for your time here. I appreciate you guys so much. Please share, subscribe, like my videos, check out my other videos. I do this sort of stuff, and I also posted a recap, which is my first. At the moment, I'm recapping Magenta Cole, the South African series starring RMD. So check that out as well. Just immerse yourself in my content, okay? All right. Take care of you. Have a wonderful time. And remember, as I always say, you have the right to an incredible viewing experience. So never settle. Bye.